Raider Nation, what's good? What an intro, huh? We're kicking off our very first episode of the Raiders Collective. Jesse Merrick here alongside Ryan McFadden and TJ Leota, SamoanRaider. Guys, how we doing? You excited to kick off our first episode of Raiders Collective?
Yeah, looking forward to it.
I'm excited, man. Another season. We get to talk Raiders football. We got a little bit of hope this season, so I think it's a perfect time to start it.
Yeah, it's an interesting time to be on the Raiders beat, to be just in the Raiders bubble and everything. I mean, again, for the first time in a long time, there's real hope around this team with Fernando Mendoza at quarterback, at least with the number 1 overall pick. There's plenty to talk about with all these guys. But for the folks out there watching tonight, again, this is our first episode. We're going to be going live every Tuesday night at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. A lot of things coming your way tonight. Also, too, we were running a Fernando Mendoza jersey giveaway. We will be getting to that in a little bit, so make sure you guys are tuned in. We'll be announcing the winner of that jersey giveaway. But right off the rip, guys, we got to start with the biggest news of the day. As Clint Kubiak stepped up to the podium to talk today, right before the first day of training camp. And it was news that will not really surprise anyone. He named Kirk Cousins the starting quarterback on day 1 of training camp. But still big because he actually came out there and said it, right? A lot of coaches will play this close to the vest.
Yeah.
Were you surprised, Ryan? You were there this morning. Were you surprised that he just came out flat out and said, hey, Kirk is the guy right now, and we're rolling with it?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised because, just coming off the offseason program, I felt like Clint Kubiak might be a guy who's kind of a little bit more reserved, doesn't want too much out there, especially how they're planning to play out the quarterback position. At the same time, it's it's hard not to see that's the direction this team is going. Yeah. This was something that you can go back into the combine when General Manager John Spyatek, even Kubiak, said the exact same thing. And this was before Mendoza or Cousins were teammates. They said we like to have a veteran quarterback, have a young quarterback play behind a veteran. And that's the same thing minority owner Tom Brady has said numerous times in the past about not rushing a young player on the field early, letting him develop, letting him learn until he's ready to go and play. So yeah, this has always been their plan. It's not surprising. That doesn't mean any people who are hoping Mendoza's the week 1 start. That doesn't mean he's out the picture. It's just the reality is that Kirk Cousins left the OTAs and mandatory minicamp as the best quarterback. And if the season started today, he is the best guy to be the starter. Just his history with Clint Kubiak, he's bringing in 14 years of experience. And on top of that, he was the best quarterback on the offseason program. And that gives also time for the coaching staff to continue to be patient with Mendoza and let him develop.
No, definitely. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think the key is he said day 1 of training camp when we open it.
He made sure,
forward, right? So TJ, for you, I'm curious, obviously you come from a bit more of a fan perspective with this one.
Yeah.
You've been creating a lot of great content around the Raiders. What was your initial reaction when he came out there and said that Kirk's the guy?
It wasn't surprising at all, but like Ryan said, him just saying it out front right now is, I guess, a little surprising to some people, but I think he just wanted to put it out there so people don't ask him again because, that's been the question that everybody's been asking. Heck, fans been asking.
We're still going to ask him, let's be real.
Yeah. It's going to be asked until the season, until week 1 of the season starts. It's always going to be a question, but it's always going to be a battle. But, I've always been on that standpoint too, is we brought Kirk Cousins for a reason. And I'm totally fine having Kirk Cousins be the starter if that's how things pan out. And this at least takes the load off of Fernando Mendoza to come out the gate starting. But we still got some time in training camp to see what he has, and even preseason. And if he does come out and over exceeds expectations, then we could talk about it. But I love the direction that we're going in right now with, having that veteran guy just at least take the bumps early on if that's the way we go.
Yeah, look, it's the smart move, right? I mean, everybody wants to see the kid play. I do too. I'll be honest. I'm always a fan of you take a guy number 1 overall because you think he can play, so you throw him out there. But in this situation, I do think it's a little different because it's not like the Raiders are trying to go to the Super Bowl this year. They can kind of build a foundation and a runway going forward. And on top of that, the thing I've been saying so much on our channels is the Raiders have so many other questions that they need answered on the offensive side of the football, particularly the offensive line. Yes, they're getting Colton Miller back. Yes, they brought in Linderbaum, and they think that they're going to get better coaching, and better play out of these guys because of that coaching. But they don't know for sure. They have to see it. And this is an offensive line that did give up 64 sacks last season. So, they don't want to just throw the kid out there behind them because nobody would have success behind an O-line like that, right? So, I think it is the smart move to do this. And so in Kirk Cousins, like, what exactly do you guys think the Raiders are getting if he indeed ends up being the guy that ends up starting? Obviously, we're putting the cart before the horse here a little bit more, but like, what do they get in Kirk Cousins? Like, what's your read on him?
I think you're getting a guy with a ton of experience. You're getting a guy who's familiar with Clint Kubiak's offense. Was for a first-time head coach, that's what you need. You need someone who's at the most important position on the field that you already had that continuity with, that strong relationship with. And Kirk Cousins was a Pro Bowler when the one season Kubiak was the offensive coordinator in Minnesota. And I think, and also too, on top of that, you're getting a guy who's a couple of seasons removed from the Achilles injury, so that's a good sign. And he feels healthy. He said in the past that like earlier in this offseason, he feels ready to go and he feels really, really healthy compared to previous years.
That's a tough
and
to
then
come back from too. It takes a couple of years. Yeah.
And especially someone who's up in like Kirk Cousins' age, he's getting up there in age. So now he feels good. And then you also too, on top of that, you got a guy who loves to feed, that's really good at feeding his tight ends. And that's why I'm someone who's been preaching for a minute that I think Brock Bowers being fully healthy, that's going to be huge for Kirk Cousins. That's going to be a security blanket. And I can't wait to see how those two are able to come together during regular season. Because I think Brock Bowers, if he's getting back to form, he's going to have a really big season with Kirk Cousins or even Mendoza under center.
Yeah, and we can't even forget about Michael Mayer too out there. So, like, we got two good weapons out there, receiving weapons. I know that the question has always been like, oh, who's going to be the wide receiver one? But we do got two capable tight ends that could definitely succeed or play well this season under Clint Kubiak, and whether Kirk Cousins goes in there. But having Kirk Cousins in there gives Fernando time, and I like that he's coming in knowing that he's going to be the mentor, or at least somebody that's going to be the temporary quarterback until Fernando is ready.
Yeah.
And
he chose his role knowing that,
and he chose his role knowing that too. And the fact that like he stated too, the same way Fernando has stated, like when they've always been asked who's the quarterback going to be, is like, I don't want to be the quarterback. I don't want to be the guy if I'm not the best option out there, right? Like if Fernando's the best guy out there, then you put him in. If I'm the best option, put me in. But that's why I like both of these guys together, because they're both selfless in that aspect where other quarterback rooms, it could be like, oh no, I'm gonna start. He could sit down, So, but I like how they're both working together on like, okay, he's gonna help out wherever he can, and we'll see how things pan out when preseason comes around and as we get geared up for week one.
Yeah, to that point, it's not like an Aaron Rodgers situation where he's like, hell no, like this is my team.
I'm the quarterback.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and I think that is big. Like, there's some people that might be like, whatever, forget about that. But like the pairing of the two of them, like it takes a certain kind of guy to be able to do that, to know that like there's some light at the end of the tunnel for you as a quarterback. You're not going to be the guy for the future. This is the kid that's going to be the future. And again, I think it means so much that he walked into that situation. Like that's why it makes it so unique to me, at least, because it's different. And this is a guy like too. I don't know. Like doesn't Kirk feel like the perfect mentor to Mendoza? Even though I know he's not mentoring him, and he's been very clear about that, and everyone has been. But like even if he learns by like osmosis by being in that room with him, it seems like they're a perfect match in that regard.
Yeah, because everybody compares them to each other, right? Like they act a certain way or whatnot. Like everybody says that Fernando's
video, like you know what I mean?
Yes,
like they played together so well with that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think on top of that, I think you couldn't ask for a better mentor than Kirk Cousins. Just like I said before, this is a guy who comes in for wealth of experience. He's played in multiple offenses in the past. Yes, and I think bringing in someone that knows the head coach, that knows the expectations of Kubiak, knows how to operate his offense. And it's not just Mendoza. I think we have to look at it with the rest of the team. I think Trey Tucker, wide receiver Trey Tucker, he mentioned it when last time we spoke to him in I believe it was June when he was available to the media. He said how Kirk Cousins was, instructed him and where Kubiak would like him to go or where he wants him to line up. So it's not just Mendoza is going to get the benefit of Kirk Cousins' leadership. It's going to be everyone involved in the offense, from Aston Genty, Brock Bowers, Trey Tucker. So just having someone to get the ball rolling.
It accelerates the learning curve for everybody. Yeah.
Yes. And it's not just Mendoza. And then when it is Mendoza's time, then he's ready to ease in. And he's gonna have his growing pains. But it's like, to me, I feel like that aspect there, he's a little bit more ahead of the curve than it is than just throwing him into the fire.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, accelerating things for everybody, and two, just like the fact of like how I've noted there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered with this team.
Yeah.
And Kirk lets you answer those questions because he gives you a better baseline, right, TJ? Like to be able to evaluate everybody else around him. That's my big thing too.
I also have a question too for you guys, because I know you guys covered the team closely last year too, and just out there, last year I had the same expectations for Geno Smith and Pete Carroll because they played together, right? So I was like, oh, that's going to be an easy learning curve. But going into this season, we're basically kind of doing the same thing with
That's fair.
Kirk Cousins and Clint Kubiak. Like, do you feel like it's different this year, or what do you think is more different this year to where Raider fans and the Raiders in general could be more excited about this new regime or quarterback duo?
I think the biggest difference here is Clint Kubiak calling shots on everything.
Yeah,
he's calling the plays on offense. This is his scheme. Where Pete Carroll, he was bringing in Chip Kelly. Like, even though Geno Smith was his guy, it was still felt like a mismatch. Like, yeah, he got his quarterback, but the guy calling shots, that wasn't his guy. And you can tell as
his offense either.
That is true. I forgot about that.
And you can tell as the season progressed, you can see the disconnect between Pete and Chip. And then it doesn't factor in when your starting left tackle goes down for injury. Starting right guard goes down for injury. You can't get the run game. Your best pass catcher gets hurt week 1, and he's not himself for 3 or 4 weeks before the team decides to rest him. Ashton Genty can't get going because he gets 3 defenders met in his face as soon as he touches the ball. It was a lot of factors in there. And granted, I had the same optimism for the Pete Carroll, Geno Smith partnership as well. Just getting the fact that you go back to the week 1 and against the Patriots, who end up going to the Super Bowl, and Geno Smith throws for nearly 400 yards, but at the same time, it's the Chip Kelly who was calling the plays. That just wasn't. It just wasn't his guy. It just wasn't a fit for what Pete Carroll wanted. But where it comes to Clint Kubiak, you have the optimism here. Is Clint Kubiak's offense? He's the one. He's going to be the one calling the plays, and this is someone. And that's why I think this partnership between Kubiak and Cousins has a better chance at playing out better for the Raiders compared to Carroll and Smith.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% on that one too. Just again, the continuity factor, because again, with Clint or with Chip and Pete, to your point there, Ryan, like just a mismatch, and you could see that deteriorating quickly, as the year went on. Then you pair in the injuries, and it's just like literally adding insult or injury to insult, I guess, in that situation, And so, like, I do think it's different because also, too, there's continuity in the entire coaching staff, not necessarily just with play caller, quarterback, and OC, but the entire staff. Rick Dennison. I mean, this dude's got a PhD. He's got more, probably plaques up on the wall than Ryan does in his office here. All the education he's got into this offense. You know what I mean? Like, this is a guy that has been there, done that in this offense, so he knows how to coach it. And that, I think, obviously, like we know, a team doesn't go unless the offensive line goes. And just in terms of being on the same page, like I know, and we'll probably get to this at some point here, but just with like a DJ Glaze, for instance, like that's a guy that a lot of people are going after this year, and rightfully so. He played horrible last year. But I think he was put in a lot of really tough situations, and he, along with other guys along the offensive line, didn't really kind of know what was going on communication-wise. It wasn't quite there, and a lot of that to me speaks to coaching, and that I think put this team even further behind the eight ball, and also Geno Smith as well. Like I said, I don't think anybody would have succeeded behind that offensive line. Not to give him a pass, because he didn't help himself either in many different ways. The fans, doing all that stuff. Like,
when he did that, man, he fucked up, bro.
Exactly. Like, you can't be doing stuff like that. So, I think it does have a better chance of working out, with this pairing. And again, too, if it doesn't, well, guess what? You got a rookie in Fernando Mendoza that you can throw out there and see if you can catch lightning in a bottle with this kid. And if he's the guy that you think he is the number 1 overall pick, then boom, now you're cooking with gas and being able to build around him is my thing.
Yeah. And to that point too, is like I joke around with fans, like of course I want this team to be competitive this year, and I think that they should be better than they were last year. But if it doesn't, knock on wood, we'll have a top pick to get a number 1 wide receiver next year. So it's a win-win situation, looking in from the outside. But it's gonna be crazy. But you guys make a good point though about that. I just wanted to ask that question because I know I had that same expectation last year, but this year does feel different. Hopefully it is different when the season does come around, though.
And to be fair, like all of us in the media, I don't know, Ryan, I don't want to lump you in this because I don't know if you've been guilty of this, but for me, I've been on the beat for the Raiders covering them since 2019. Each and every year I have said, this just feels different because they cycled through so many different coaches. And it
as a fan, this is every year's been different since 2003. So,
right?
you know, we're still on chapter 1 right now, but you know, I think it is going to feel a little different this year.
I think it'll feel different when it doesn't actually feel different, and there's real continuity around this team, and that's obviously what they're hoping for. You know, with Clint Kubiak coming into the fold and everything like that. Also, too, it can I think even be just like a true divide and conquer, where Kubiak's like, hey, I've got the offense. Rob Leonard, I know you're a first-year defensive coordinator, but hey, you handle the defense, and it's almost like splitting the coaching of the team apart there, and that's a good thing, I think, too. That just can help everybody. You know exactly where the message is coming from. Even look back with Pete Carroll, not to turn this into a recap of last season, but like look at the defense they were running. That was not Patrick Graham's defense. Look at how not like they weren't as aggressive as they were with Patrick Graham. They dialed back the blitz like crazy, leaned into cover 3 even more. And I know everybody plays cover 3 in the league and it was on the rise in the league overall, but at the rate they were running it, like that was Pete Carroll kind of imposing a lot of that, I think, on Patrick Graham, not to give him a pass or anything, but you could just see where there was so much stuff where it was like, okay, where's the messaging coming from? And I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case with this team. And I do think, too, like that helps a young quarterback. And we got to talk about Fernando and like what this all means for him. Because, again, they say that Kirk's going to be the guy tomorrow at practice. We'll see what that looks like a week, 2, 3, 4, 8 weeks from now, whatever. But what are you guys expecting out of Fernando, given the situation that he is stepping into now?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, go ahead.
I think when you look at Fernando Mendoza's expectations, I kind of look at where I think it's going to be a process where they're going to have to ease him in. Where you let's look at last year, how the Giants had Russell Wilson and then he turned to Jackson Dart. I think it's going to be something similar to that. And I think with that being said, you're going to have to temper your expectations just a little bit in terms of like the numbers he produced, because we don't know when that time comes. It might be 4 games in the season. It might be 8 games in the season. We really don't know. And I think the biggest thing with Fernando is this, like, I see playing. If the Raiders are with Kirk Cousins and they are looking like a playoff team, right? You have to roll with Kirk Cousins. It would be crazy not to do that, because you were hurt. You were hurt even Mendoza, not only just a team. If you hurt Mendoza, if you throw Mendoza out there because you feel like I got to throw a rookie out there, and then he struggles, and then he looks like the whole weight is on his shoulders because he struggled, and now we're out of the playoff picture because they want to go to me instead of rely on Kirk Cousins. Yeah, I think you just can't do that. So, if the Raiders are playing really good football and they're winning, then you can go to, I think you have to ride with Kirk Cousins. There's no choice. But in terms of Fernando, I think when you're going to see him on the field, and this is just my prediction, I think it's going to come in 2 ways. It's like the Raiders, like they already know, like, hey, this is not going to be our year. we're going to be competitive, but it's not going to be our year. And then, they make the call. Even if Kirk Cousins playing average football, if he's playing average football, you just make that call, say, hey, we gotta look at our future. And I think Kirk Cousins came into this situation, understand that is a possibility. Or if, Kirk Cousins is struggling, he did last time as a full-time starter, he had 16 interceptions. This is a guy who, as good as he's been in the league, he's had issues turning the ball over, right? So if we're in a situation,
I don't want to hear about turnovers. Plenty of that last year.
Bro, tired of those, man.
If you look at a situation where the team is like, the team is struggling, Kirk Cousins is throwing picks, you're going to have to make that move sooner rather than later. But I think the best path forward is going to be similar to like how the Giants approach Russell Wilson and Jackson Dart. It's just a matter of, I think it's going to come down to how this team is playing overall is when we're going to see him on the field.
Yeah. No.
I would say like exactly. I agree with you, but I feel like the expectations, at least for me, like in a perfect world, is we don't see Fernando Mendoza in year 1 because at all.
Oh, okay, nice.
Like, because if Kirk Cousins goes into the season how the Raiders expect him to, right, and he's the starter, if we don't see Fernando, that means we're doing good. Like Ryan said, like the Raiders are doing good, at least competing. Not saying we're perfect, but we don't have to put, Fernando Mendoza in there. Kind of like, like Alex Smith back in the days when they had Patrick Mahomes. They didn't really see Patrick until year 2, but the only way we do see Fernando is, one, if he shows out in training camp and preseason and he shows he's ahead of the curve, or everything's going to shit and by the bye week or something, or halfway through the season, Raider fans are over Kirk Cousins and they just want to see the new guy out there. So I think like in a perfect world, we just rather see. For me, like I said, I'd rather see Fernando Mendoza just sit, learn, prep, and just kind of learn under Kirk Cousins until his number is called. Because we've seen it many times in the NFL where we'll have like top picks, especially at the quarterback position, get thrown into the fire, and most times it's not their fault. You know, it might be the organization, but if they don't come in and they show out right out the gate, like a lot of organizations, they just move on from them in like 2 years or something. And it's like, and you just wasted a pick on them rather than like what Tom Brady stated before, like NFL teams need to go back to what it was before, where you sit these guys behind like veterans and just let them kind of learn the game and stuff like that until their time is ready. And then by that time they should be good. So
I think
like that's my expectations for Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go back to, 2018? I think Baker Mayfield was the last guy drafted number 1 overall who didn't start week 1. He ended up starting like week 3. Funny enough, against the Raiders too, but it was his first start, I think. But it is kind of crazy because it's like, okay, you draft a guy number 1 overall in the modern NFL, at least in recent years, like they start. But TJ, to your point, like if you see him early, then that probably means things went to shit, and that's not good. So like, that's that weird situation I think that the Raiders are in. Because it's like, okay, well, if things are going well, what are you going to pull Kirk out of there and throw the kid out there and be like, okay, hey, make sure you keep it up. So it is a weird situation. I think, too, like, depending on, again, how their season ends up going, you know, if they're competing for something, as much as they've said, like, we're not trying to go to the Super Bowl, win double-digit games, whatever this year, or that like the whole quote about, like, we've got a mountain to climb, not trying to climb it in a day thing. If all of a sudden Kirk's got him winning, okay, that plan changes. And to your point, then no, they're not going to throw him out there. But I'm going to be so interested to see, like, even if they're playing like 500 ball or right under that, you know, right around the bye week or something, if they end up deciding to like throw him out there. Because to me, like, I look at it like the first chunk of the season, that first month, that schedule's manageable. So, like, if Fernando were to find a way to win the job coming out of camp, you're set up for success. If you do indeed have Kirk starting, which, again, I think is going to end up being the case, well, okay, now the Raiders can go on kind of a run. But then the schedule gets brutal from weeks like, 5 all the way to 12, you know, going into the bye week there. And I don't think you want to throw the kid out there in that situation either. So, like, as I look at it, I mean, the only time where you could maybe throw it in there is, like, maybe the game against the Jets. You know, but even then, it's like you still got some tough games against, the Niners and the Seahawks, I think, after that as well, and Denver. So it is going to be fascinating to watch and see how it happens if indeed Kirk does end up starting and how they do approach it. You know, because there's always so much pressure of like, play the kid. If Kirk has a game where he throws 3 interceptions, everybody's going to be all over him. Oh, yeah. You know, all your homies at ESPN, Ryan, they're going to be like, screaming, where's Fernando? You know, Pat McAfee and all of them are going to be going nuts saying that they need to see Fernando. So that's going to be one thing that's going to be so interesting is like if they can actually insulate themselves from that noise and stick to the plan.
And I think the only good thing out of this, if they do throw him in there, is fans will give him more of a leeway to have mistakes, especially in year 1, like than they would with a Geno Smith or, you know, Jimmy G or something like that. Like if they do throw him in the fire and they feel like the season's not going as planned, like I feel like Raider fans will at least be keen to like giving him the benefit of the doubt for the rest of the season. So at least that's the positive side out of it. But like I don't want to see Fernando unless he won the job or unless we're like tanking at the end of the season. But outside of that, that's the I feel like expectations for him would just be like sitting down in a perfect world, though. But
Ryan, I'm curious your thought on this too, man. Because like what I've been saying is like I think the only way that Fernando wins the job is if he looks like the second coming of Joe Burrow in practice over the next handful of weeks there at training camp. Like, because to me, like I've been saying, I think if it's close in most situations, you go with the rookie, the number 1 overall pick, versus the veteran. But I think in this situation, I think they probably go with the vet over the rookie, even if it's close. What do you think? Like, do you think he does need to have that type of showing in order to win it? Like, leave no type of doubt thing, or is if it's close, do you think that they would lean over to Mendoza first over him?
I think if it's close, they'll still lean to Kirk Cousins. I really do. And I think one thing here, but I think if it's close, that means if it's a close battle and Kirk Cousins does still end up winning it, that means I feel like you're going to see Mendoza sooner rather than later. But yeah, I think if Mendoza wants to be a week 1 start, he really has to show out. Like you said, it's going to have to. He's going to have to light it up each practice. Where you're looking at him like, oh my gosh, this guy, he needs to be week 1 because he has a legit shot being offensive rookie of the year. That's the type of what I need to see from Mendoza to make that jump, especially with Kirk Cousins as in that QB room. Now, if we were in a situation where it was Mendoza and it was just Mendoza and Aiden O'Connell, then yeah, I would say, all right, you go Mendoza, of course. But with Kirk Cousins,
hey, the Aiden O'Connell evangelists out there are gonna come for you, man. They're gonna come for you after that. There's a lot of them out there.
So, but like with Cousins, like I feel like they're I think Cousins will still get that slight edge. And to me, I think the reason why you have to do that is because you invest a lot of money in this offseason. The Raiders spent more money than any team in the league. You get Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean to revamp your linebacker room. You get Tyler Linderbaum, one of the better centers in the league. You acquire Teron Johnson from the Buffalo Bills via trade, and you kind of want to see. You get, and we go back to the injuries and people getting healthy. Max Crosby's getting healthy. Brock Bowers, JPJ, Colton Miller. You want to see, all right, we want to see, can we actually make a run with these pieces? Can with this revamped defense, can we make a push for something? And I think if Kirk Cousins give you that best job to see that, then you got to go with it, because I would hate to pull the trigger, just take Kirk Cousins out the situation and you're already shooting yourself in the foot saying, all right, we're just going to ride the wave and treat it as a rebuild year. You invested a lot of money in these guys, and most of these guys are in the prime of their, some of these guys are still in the prime of their career. So let's see what this collection of group can do. Can we compete for a wild card? If we're end of the season and maybe we're a few games under 500 and we know we still don't have a shot, then yeah, I'll probably make that consideration. Or if we're struggling, then yeah, I'll just pull the plug and have Mendoza start. But when you start in that season, like you said, that first month is manageable. Let's get the ball rolling as best as possible. See how many games we can win, and can we make some noise, especially with an improved roster on paper.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good way to put it too, because you got vets that you invested in. Yeah, so that's a good way, I think, to view it. TJ, what do you think with all that?
Real quick, my bad. I was paying attention to the chat right now. Shout out to the chat real quick, because they all think this is pre-recorded right now, but we're live right now.
Live, guys.
And trust me, I already told Jesse about his mic, so just letting people know that.
We've been trying to work on the mic. I've been turning it up, so if it's not
I just let people know, because it's it's not live. They're probably just looking at their notes like, no, we're live right now. I was trying to do it low key, but just letting you know. But my bad. What was the question again?
You're good. Just in terms of to Ryan's point, he was bringing up the fact of they invested a lot of money, brought in a lot of guys that are 25.
Yeah,
dudes that still have a lot to prove, but also in the prime of their career, and you kind of want to strike on that. You don't want to wait till these guys are 28, 29, things like that. Do you think too they kind of do owe it to those guys and to a Max Crosby to go for it and see what they actually do have? They spent a lot of money and invested into this team. A lot of you fans are really excited about where this is going right now, right? So, I think, too, they owe it to themselves to see what they actually have before they do go in there and try and worry about developing a rookie to build up their quarterback position.
Yeah, because even if we say, this is a rebuilding year, and I know that Clint Kubiak has stated, we're not expecting to go out there and win the Super Bowl right out the gate, but we still have to put a competitive team together, and that's why they've constantly said that they're going to put the best guy out there. And it's the same thing with Kirk Cousins and Fernando, like I stated earlier. They want the best person out there, and I think Clint talked about it today. It's going to be competition in every room, every position group, and he's going to put the best guy out there. So I think even without the high expectations that we have this season, they're still going to go about this season we could win it all, or at least be competitive. And we've seen that before, because the Raiders aren't always hyped up to be the team, right, until they show something. And I feel like this could be one of those seasons where we do surprise people, but because the expectation is so low. But we did bring in a lot of guys. Clint Kubiak is coming over here, and I think Mark Davis now trying to do this whole thing again, instead of just trying to bring in people that people want us to have, bringing Clint Kubiak and resetting after Pete Carroll just showed you that they're trying to put a plan in place, because the last time they did was John Gruden until the emails leaked. But outside of that, they want to have a plan moving forward, and I think that's something that they've preached to all the free agents that they brought in, and all of the coaching staff that they brought in. So yeah, I think us as fans or reporters, we could say it's not a Super Bowl year for us, but at the end of the day, they're still going to go out there and try to compete it is going to be a Super Bowl year, at least in the building, because it's one Sunday at a time. It's any given Sunday, and like that 2016 season, nobody expected the Raiders to be really good. Like we just started stringing wins together, and it's like, oh damn, we gotta kind of look at them a little more seriously. So we'll see how the season looks, but that's why my expectations this year is not going to the Super Bowl or playoffs. It's just being competitive, and even when we lose, be competitive. That's it.
Yeah. That's all it seems like a lot of you guys want, especially like last year. I think we all thought that was going to be the case with Pete Carroll taking over. We didn't think we'd see those blowouts, and we saw, a ton of them, obviously. And so that's something that you guys are hoping changes. I think if they get the running game going, that'll go a long way in helping prevent a lot of that and just game flow and things like that. Man, we're going about a half hour. I feel like we should give away this Fernando Mendoza jersey, right? Like we should announce the winner. What do you guys think?
Let's do it.
Yeah,
I think we do get the winner. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Hopefully he's in here listening. Maybe this will prove to you guys that it is live.
Yeah.
We got to give a shout out to Big Ron 2424 on Twitter. You're the winner of the Fernando Mendoza jersey. We will make sure that the folks over at HMA who are helping us run this channel will reach out to you to make sure and let you know how you won that jersey. So thank you for entering. Thank you for following. Thank you to everybody who subscribed along the way. This is just the beginning. Like we said, night one, show one of the Raiders Collective. We're going to have a lot more coming for you, and we're not going anywhere. We still got plenty to talk about here on this show.
Exactly.
So with that, let's kind of flip the page because obviously there was some big news.
Yeah.
Real
quick before, real quick before, I just want to give a shout out to the chat real quick.
Yeah.
I know there were some comments in there that I just want to highlight real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because, trust me, we're still getting used to this, guy. So
this is
we're doing good on this. But shout out to I think 2 Red Rings. He said a top QB is a big thing to squander. You don't get or want the first pick on the regular. There's no way to develop a quarterback. The hope is that we have someone who can make the right choice in Fernando, basically.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like it's tough too because it's like you got the rookie deal, so you want to be able to like build around him and all that stuff and take advantage of that. But again, like I think I don't want to say punting because that sounds bad, but like by realizing like, hey, we're going to set that foundation this year, next year's that year to really inject even more talent, spend more money around him and build up around him. Like that's where I think it's okay to not be like, we got to throw him out there now,
Yeah. No, that is true. I don't know if Ryan has anything on that, but we could go on to Niels. He says, keep an eye on Malik Benson, going to build that rapport with Fernando in camp and preseason too. He'll be starting by end of year. Awesome podcast so far, guys. I just want to see us win our home opener. Hey, that's all we can ask for.
Neil Galati too. Shout out to Neil, by the way.
That's my dog.
I see Neil at the Raiders games all the time, man.
I know him too, bro.
Yeah. Dude, it's hard when you're reading these things live because it doesn't click who they are if you know them most of the time.
Yeah.
Thank God you read it so I could actually see that it was Neil.
Yeah, see, I'm trying to do both things at once. But I mean, thanks for that too. But I mean, Malik Benson, I don't see him that much. I know you guys probably do in the building. I don't know if there's anything that
I'm high on Malik, honestly. Ryan, I'd love your thoughts on this. I mean, look, it was in shorts and a helmet in the offseason when we saw him, but the kid was making plays. Like, I think if you go back and watch his tape at Oregon, too, like, I know he gets pegged as, like, a speed guy, and I think, I forget the percentage, but, like, a high percentage of his routes were nines, running vertical and things like that. I think he's got a bigger route tree than people want to give him credit for, and he's willing to go over the middle if you watch the tape and make those plays, like, and go out and catch it outside of his frame. He's not one of those typical speedsters that like won't make the tough catches, at least in my read on him. Ryan, I'm curious what you saw from him when we got eyes on him at practice.
Yeah, this is someone who I thought was one among the standouts during the Raiders off-season program. Someone who, can make plays in the middle of the field. You saw that quite a bit during, when they were in 11-on-11s. You saw that repertoire between him and Mendoza was building each practice. Someone who can be that deep ball threat as well. I wouldn't be surprised the Raiders look into him trying to provide some help in the return game. I think Malik Benson has a chance, to carve himself a role, especially in year one, because when you look at that wide receiver room, it's very thin. You got Trey Tucker, you got Jalen Naylor, but everything else is up. It's a wide open wide receiver room right there between Dante Thornton, Jack Besh, Malik Benson. It wouldn't hurt for them to maybe explore the idea of either adding a veteran wideout, whether it's in free agency or in the trade market. There's a lot of quality wideouts out there still in free agency. You got Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Deebo Samuel. Those guys are still out there on the market. But like with that being said, Malik Benson at the moment, when you look at that depth chart, he has a chance to, to create a name for himself where he is getting some significant snaps in year one.
Yeah. I'll be TJ. I'd like your thoughts on this because Ryan brought up some of the guys that are out there. with Diggs and Keenan Allen and things like that. Like I have said,
Yeah.
let these young guys go out there and show you who they are, because there's a lot of unknown in there. Like
Mhm.
I've been to the camp of like, don't bring in one of those vets. Like I think if it was maybe next season, because we've seen even what Diggs can do for a second-year quarterback, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like I've been thinking, I'm like, man, just like with a lot of things on this offense, like you have to let these guys show you who they are and what they can be. I'm curious what your take is on that. Like, are you of the camp like, hey, bring in a vet and maybe let them learn from him, or like how do you kind of approach that?
No, like I don't want to bring in any of those guys. I mean, if there was another guy that I wanted, then maybe. But I feel like you said, like this year, like we don't have a true wide receiver one. But I feel like this is the perfect season to kind of see what you have in the building right now with the young guys. With you got Jack Besh going into second year, you got Dante, you got these young guys like Malik Benson. So like at least see what you have this year, and I feel like next year is going to be the year where the offseason where we kind of go all in on like trying to find that wide receiver one if we don't have one on the roster right now,
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm standing at.
No,
But
yeah,
with this
and
whole
there's some
situation.
guys coming down the pipe. Like you can also find receivers in a lot of different ways too, and so that's why I think it's not necessarily something that you like have to address
Yeah.
right now. We got anything else in the chat we should hit before we move on? Anybody else got any
Okay, yeah,
questions?
we'll do some quick ones. Kenny Clark up in here says it's revenge time for the next 30 years or so. I hope so, man.
For
We've
the
been in the
next
drought
30
for a
years, you're
long
talking 3 decades, dude.
3 decades.
Woo!
Well, Fernando playing like 15 of them. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, I was gonna
We
say,
got
gonna be Brady all over again, playing until he's 80 years old.
they're calling him the next Brady for a reason, right? We got my Slim up in here, man. How many games do you think that Kirk Cousins will play this year?
Ooh.
For me, like I said, in a perfect world, it would be all 17, but I don't know realistically how you guys feel about that.
Ryan, what do you think?
I'm going. I think I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with 7 or 8. I think
Yeah.
he's going to get 7 to 8 games. I think that's going to be enough to figure out where where this team is from from a standing standpoint, performance standpoint. I think that'd be enough. Barring any injuries, I think Kirk Cousins will get 7 to 8 games. But if he's playing well, it's going to be the whole season. But I think just off the question right now, at the moment, just how this team views the quarterback situation, it's going to be 7 to 8 games. And I think that's enough time to kind of judge where this team is at.
No, yeah, that's the caveat for sure. Like, got to stay healthy, first of all, and that dictates, obviously, a lot of this. 7-8 games would put them roughly at, like, playing until the Rams and the Jets game, and then possibly start Fernando the San Fran game. That would be crazy, the first trip back to the Bay if Fernando's starting. I've thought about that, like, if that's where they insert him.
That's rowdy. That's
that
be
would
crazy
be so crazy up there in the Bay Area. I'm going to go out and say 12 games just because, again, then that would be them coming out of the bye, the week 13 or week 14, that is. Sorry, you throw Mendoza out there. So I'm going to put it at 12. That's kind of what I think it'll work out, because I think even at that point, let's say the Raiders are 6-6. You're still in position to where you can make a run for something, but how do they really view the team, and how does the rest of the division stack up, all that stuff? Like, there's so many factors that could go into it, but I would put that number at 12. That's kind of my guess with it.
Yeah, if I put a realistic number, maybe 6 or 7.
Yeah. I knew that was going to get in there somewhere.
Boo this guy. No, I'm just joking. No, but shout out to the chat, man. Shout out to everybody that's joining us. We're over 100 people live for our first live stream, which is pretty good. So, if you guys haven't already, man, make sure to hit that subscribe button, that like button, and even share it if you guys haven't already. We'll be here live every Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and hopefully, during the playoffs when we're on the way to LA, you know what I mean? No. Oh yeah, but I know getting onto the next thing though.
Oh yeah, with Vita Vea, yeah. But I mean, dude, shout out. That's the thing. Over 100 folks in the thing now do on the live stream for show 1. That is really good. So shout out to you guys. We know Raider Nation shows out for this stuff, so we do appreciate it. I can't wait to see how that number grows, in the weeks that go on. But definitely, let's talk about Vita Vea. This one was an interesting one today, with Vita saying he wants to be traded. What do you guys think? Because obviously, look, it's so easy to sit here and play this game anytime anybody says they want to trade. Like, whether you're a fan of the team, whether you cover the team, it's always like, okay, does it make sense for them to come to the team that I'm covering or I'm a fan of? Yeah. Do you guys think it makes sense for the Raiders to try and make a trade for Vita Vea right now?
I'll start. I'm on the fence on this.
Yeah. It's a hard one to kind of go about.
It is because you have to look at it on two sides. So let's say on the side of, you want Vita Vea in a Raiders uniform. You look at, you got Max Crosby. You bring it. They need defensive line reinforcement. It doesn't hurt to add more to it. And I think that's someone who can come in and immediately help them in the trenches in terms of stopping the run and
Everybody
create
wants a
more
nose
pressure
too.
and create more pressure at the quarterback. And you add him with Crosby, Kwity Paye, Quay Walker, and Kobe Dean. You look at that defense just on paper, man, that's night and day. The defense, that defensive line looks night and day compared to what we saw last year. But at the same time, and then you have to factor in, John Spytek was a part of, the Buccaneer staff when they drafted him out of Washington. So you got the ties there. But now you have to look at this as well. He's up there. He's up there in age 31, I believe. And I believe the Raiders at the moment has 14 million in cap. If you're going to get Vita Vea, you're going to have to give him a new deal. Whether it's you rework his current deal to give him more guarantees, or you lock him up for a long-term deal. And do the Raiders want to do that? Are they in the spot to do that at the present moment? Do they feel? And that's where you kind of had to question that possibility, because you still got you got Jonah Laulu, you got Thomas Booker, you got Tonka Hemingway, you got JJ. Tonka and JJ were two guys they drafted last year. So you got some young guys that you want
receiver core, yeah.
Yes, and that you want to see what you can get out of them. So I don't know, just given the state of this team, that's the best path moving forward in terms of putting that money towards him. And you're taking snaps away from some of those young guys who may be developing to solid contributors for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. For me, man, it's honestly just saying it was like absolutely. Like I would love to have him on this team. I'm a little biased too because I'm Pauly.
Disneyland when you.
I saw you see, I was at this man. I was like, what the heck? All of a sudden, we got Raider news when I'm at Disneyland, dog. But bro, I would love to have Vita Vea on this team, man. Like, and I know that it wouldn't cost. Well, a lot of people are saying that it wouldn't even cost much because the Bucs really have no leverage, and I think it would be perfect because he grew up a Raider fan. So I think it'd be perfect for him to come over here, which is why they kind of threw it out there like he's down to go back to Cali or the Raiders. But just looking at the Raiders right now, we're kind of like in a rebuilding stage. But for Vita, I don't think he's trying to go to a contender. He just wants to get paid, and I think the Raiders can do it. They could move some money around. I don't really know the numbers like that, but bringing him on would definitely help the defensive line a lot more than it is right now, and it gives Max another guy to kind of get after the quarterback. So like overall, like I think it would be perfect to have him on his team, especially as a fan. Like and knowing that the Raiders just released my big Uso Lockheed, man, we could use another big body in there. So, but. I like, for me, simple answer is like, yes, I would love Vita Vea.
I know a lot of the fans loved Lockheed Tassi. That was a move. I didn't think they would release him before camp started, but I was like not super surprised by that.
Yeah.
Just because it's just kind of, if it hadn't clicked yet, it might not. But this one is really interesting with Vita Vea because I like Ryan too. I'm like on the fence on this one. Like initially, I was like sitting there, I'm like, well, it could make sense. But then you're like, okay, he's 31 years old. He's making $17 million a year base right now with $1 million roster bonus. So $18 million a year. And he's still not happy with that money. So then you're going to throw even more money at him to a dude who is north of 31 years old. And on a team where, to Ryan's point, like they invested a lot of capital and everything in him. And then again, what would it take for the trade? Like, is it a second? Is it a third? I really don't know what that would actually look like. We'd have to kind of wait and see, what that market develops into. But and I hate keeping doing this too, like with the receiving core of like, no, let the guys show you who they are and like keep kicking that can down the road. But I think even too, you can go and look like you can find a good D tackle. And I think next year's draft class, like I did a little bit of digging and stuff, like the D tackle class may not be like have like the clear cut like superstar, but those dudes on the interior, it seems like it's a really deep draft class. Like the Raiders very clearly didn't like the D tackle class, or at least the interior defensive lineman class this year, because they passed on some of those guys. They had an opportunity to take Caden McDonald. They traded out of that spot with the Texans, and the Texans took him. Like they very clearly didn't want him there. They had opportunities to take other guys too. So I think maybe they look at next year's class and they're like, we can find a guy there. Again, now this is a dude that's coming in his early 20s. You have him on a rookie deal. You're not using draft capital that you need to inject a lot of talent into this roster too. Like, one thing in this whole conversation that's really hard for me to get over anytime you talk about trading for like vets and things like that is that like they've screwed up a lot of drafts over the years, you know, with all the different staffs coming through. And so like they just need to inject a ton of young talent into this group. And that's why I think it was so big that they went and got a lot of 25-year-olds in free agency, is to kind of almost like correct those draft woes over the years, to just like, okay, hey, look, these are guys that are now on their second contract that had they been homegrown, we possibly could have been able to do that as the Raiders. So like I'm like so hesitant to give up draft capital because of that too, because I'm like, you got to find a way to draft dudes and build them up within your organization rather than trading that stuff away.
Yeah. And you got, go on.
And just to add off of that, is just you got to look at the reality of the situation. If you told me going into this season, the Raiders are going to compete for a wild card spot, they have a chance to compete for the division, then I'll make that call.
Make that
but
move,
they're not in that situation. When you look at the roster, there's a lot of question. As much optimism there is for this coaching staff and the pieces they have brought in and the future, there's still a lot of pieces, a lot of question marks around the whole on both sides of the ball that makes you wonder. That's what makes me say I don't think this team, they could prove us wrong. They could very well prove us wrong.
Yeah.
But you look at the paper, there's a lot of question marks in certain position groups where you're like, this is not a team that can, compete for a postseason spot. So why give away your draft capital for a veteran who wants a long-term deal? You already got young guys at that defensive line spot. And then you're going to have a draft where if you do need to add more interior help, you can use the 2027 draft to do that. And John Spytek is a guy who loves his draft picks. He's a guy who loves drafting and developing guys that they obtain through those picks, trading back and getting additional picks. So if it does, require like a second round pick or a second round pick and
probably a high second round pick too.
A high second round pick and a day 3 pick. I don't know if that's worth it, just given the state of this team at the present moment.
Yeah, I see a lot of people saying like maybe a third and fifth, which I guess I don't know too much, but like I was like, oh yeah, just do that. But I see where you guys are coming from, because like you guys think with logic. I find that just like I want everybody. Like, just bring me everybody.
Like I'm like, if it was just the draft capital and you could pay him $18 million a year, that might make sense.
Yeah,
but he wants a bigger deal too. Dude wants to get paid, like you said. So like,
hey, Raiders, just spend that shit, bro. They were good. No, but it's funny. I agree with what you guys are saying too. Like there's two sides of it. Like it doesn't make sense, but it would be nice for a lot of Raider fans. And then somebody in the chat, I guess this is the main reason why Jesse doesn't want him to leave. It's from MG's Raider. He says it weakens Jesse's team.
They know it. He wants to watch.
See, I wouldn't have got this if Jesse didn't tell me before the live stream who his real team is. So like, he's like, we don't want him to leave. It don't make sense for the Raiders or anybody to take Vita, dog. He should stay where he's at.
Nobody should trade him. Yeah, forget him. I heard that he hates playing football. For anybody,
he's not even that good. He's old.
Yeah, they asked me that question today on Raider Nation Radio too. They were like, "What was your first thought when you saw that Vita Vea wanted to be traded?" And I was like, damn, that was my first thought, because I'm pissed because my Bucks are going to be weakened, So I'm not happy about it one bit. Having said that, there will be a time when I would say the Raiders should go all in and trade for guys like that. Right now, it just ain't it. But also too, like, back off of my Bucks, all right? Like, let us have some good things. I know there's some hard feelings between Raiders fans and Bucks fans, but come on, man, that was a long time ago.
It's all good though. It's all good. But. Yeah, it would be crazy though if that were to happen, but I won't believe it until it happens. And if it does happen, I'm like, all right, we'll see how it goes, but we'll see how because I heard something, I don't know how true it is, but like the Raiders have mutual interest as well, and they put in an offer. I don't know if that's
for Vita. That was something you had heard
for Vita. That's what. Well, I seen on Twitter, so I don't know.
Yeah. That's nothing I've heard, Ryan. Is that anything you've heard? Any deal out there on? Yeah, I think it's probably still too early on some of that.
It's still too early.
Yeah. If Ryan didn't hear it, then it's not true. Then.
But again, we'll wait and see kind of how it transpires as it goes forward, because there's a lot of ways this one could go.
Yeah.
In the meantime, though, guys, too, I think we haven't even talked about it yet, but you guys can see it on the screen. We are sponsored by Prize Picks. I feel like we got to show them a little bit of love, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Shout out
Prize
to
Picks, in case you guys don't know, they are the #1 sports picks app, too, and they've got a new offer for you. If you play $5 in lineups and win your first lineup, then you're actually going to get $150 in free lineups if you win that. So that's pretty damn good. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, that sounds like a good deal to me.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
You know, all we do is win. Just win, baby. No, not over here, though. But like in general, you guys get it, though. You guys,
There was an interview last year with Taylor Rocha from Channel 13 out here. She interviewed one of the fans at training camp, and he was like, it was something along the lines of like, if we never lose, but we don't always win, or something like that. I was like,
that was a good one, yeah.
Yeah. Just as an aside, but we're not saying you'll never lose on Prize Picks. But if you bet $5 and get that $150 because you won it, I mean, that is a good deal. $145, or well, I guess $150 in free money right there for you. So just make sure too, when you download it though, use the code HMA for it. We actually got a lineup for you right here. What do you guys think about some of the picks on this one? We kept it Raiders related for you.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't see it, like they got Ashton Genty for season stats with more than 974.5 yards, rushing yards this season. Fernando Mendoza with over 2,349.5 passing yards, and Brock Bowers with more than 86.5 receptions.
Yeah,
I mean, for me,
If you guys aren't familiar with Prize Picks too, like when you go on there, you either pick more or less if you go with players picks and things like that. Like you can also go on there, you can pick, teams straight up. You can pick against the spread. You can go and pick fights too. It's not just football and things like that. But I think this one is interesting. TJ, go ahead. You were about to comment a little on some of these numbers.
Because I think out of all of these ones, I think the most realistic one has got to be the Ashton Genty one. I definitely go more on that one, because last year he was 25 yards shy or something like that from 1,000 yards rushing.
Last year behind that Swiss cheese line. I mean,
with that offensive line. So I mean, there should be no reason in why he can't get under 1,000, especially with this Clint Kubiak offense is more run heavy, and now the expectations for him to kind of carry the offense a little bit more, because quarterback's best friend is like the running back and the tight end, right? So you would expect him to kind of go off this year, and a lot of the workload is not going to be on him this year, hopefully. But I think out of those three, that's the most realistic one for me, and I would go more on that. But
I think Ashton Genty has a really good shot at having a big year. I think I look back at that Texans game last year and what he did against, to me, one of the top 2 defense in the league last year. I'm like, man, you just gave him a solid O-line for at least half the year. You're talking about a guy who could have probably been the offensive rookie of the year candidate and or even probably won it. Just when you saw that game, I'm like, wow, right? So I think he has a chance, to do more than that. My expectation for him is over 1,000 yards rushing. That's what I see with Ashton Genty. And as for Brock Bowers, I look at that. I think he's going to get fed a lot. I think so too. His rookie year he had 112, 112 receptions. I think it's going to be around that, maybe more, just because of because when you look at, and one of the biggest things there is, like, you look at the wide receiver room we talked about, and they lack depth. Right now, the best overall pass catcher in that room on that team is Brock Bowers. Like, if you want to move the ball down the field, give the ball to Brock Bowers, no matter what. And just I think that you're going to see him and Kirk Cousins connect a lot this year, and especially when he's fully healthy. So I think Brock Bowers, he's going to put some. I think I think he has a chance to put some really big numbers this year.
He's the funnel in this offense, right? Not that he's necessarily going to take every part of that Jackson Smith and Jigba role from up in Seattle, but he's going to be the guy that they funnel the ball to. Like, he'll take on some way, shape, or form of that role. And, I mean, you look at it last year, he had 64 catches last year and only played in 12 games. That's not that far off from what we've got here on the more or less. They got him at 86.5. So this is a dude, too, his rookie year goes for 112 catches. I think he's going to be up there in that, 130 to 150 target range, to be completely honest. So, that seems really reasonable for me. I'm with you guys on Ashton Genty. Like, if he doesn't top 1,000 yards, honestly, if he doesn't top 1,100 yards on the season, like rushing, it's probably kind of like a little bit of a disappointment, right?
For sure.
Or it tells you that the offensive line didn't do too hot. The Fernando Mendoza one is interesting because I don't know about that number. Like, I wonder how many games he'd have to play to reach 2,349.5 or to be able to surpass that. That's the one that I'm like, I don't know if he can necessarily get over that, especially that late into the season.
Yeah, because it'll definitely change depending on if they announce that he's going to start the season, then that number is easily like, I think he could easily hit that number. But if he's not starting and if we don't even know when he comes in, that's kind of like the hardest one to kind of predict. Carl Saunders in the chat said the same thing. He said, I think the Genty and Bowers props are good to take. The Fernando Mendoza one is, of course, depends on how much he plays.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the same one that we said, though. But
exactly.
Yeah.
You got to watch the reports out of camp. If he looks like Joe Burrow, then maybe you start hammering that one here on Prize Picks. I don't know. You know what I mean? People can be watching Ryan and I on Twitter like, wait, what did you say? You know. Having said that, don't make betting advice or betting picks off of what we tweet. Just do it off of your own.
Jesse and Ryan said this at camp.
Exactly. Yeah. Got to make sure we cover ourselves on that one. But definitely do check out Prize Picks, guys, and make sure you use the code HMA to do that, to take advantage of the new promo that they are running. Again, play $5 and get $150 in free lineups if you win. Again, a pretty good deal. But with that, guys, let's keep it rolling because like we talked about, like training camp is starting tomorrow. I'm very curious what you guys are most interested to watch in terms of like the camp battles and things like that. Ryan, which ones do you kind of have circled as we get ready to start training camp here that you're like, man, these are going to be the fascinating ones to watch?
I think it has to be the cornerback position, right? I think Eric Stokes has that I think his role solidified there on the outside cornerback. Teron Johnson saying, I think you got your starting nickel, but that other outside corner role, that to me that's a toss up. Darian Porter started 10 out of 17 games, but I don't think that guarantees him a spot because you got a guy named Jamal McCoy who was a projected top 10, top 15 pick. Some consider the best cornerback in the draft. Falls down to the fourth round, and you go up and get him. And Kent Kubiak, the way he's sounding is like this. They're going to throw him out there. And he's going to get reps early to test how he is in that recovery. And if he's out there and he's playing freely, doesn't have a ton of restrictions on him, he has a chance to emerge. Can compete or even take that starting role from Darian Porter. And if he's playing at a high level, man, that's a really good, that's a steal. Maybe one of the better steals of this year's draft. I'm interested to see how that cornerback room plays out because they're young. So and Darian Porter is going to year 2, but and like pass game coordinator Joe Woods said this too. He still has a lot to learn playing the cornerback position just because he's begun his career as a wide receiver. So, and it wasn't until his final year at Iowa State where he was starting full time as a cornerback. So he still has a lot of room to grow too. Same as Jamal McCoy. This is a guy with a ton of upside. He's only 20 years. He's only 20 years old. So if he comes out there, it's going to be interesting how how they manage his snaps and his reps and can he take over that starting role over Darian Porter. If they don't, that's probably if there's issues there, that's another role where he said, do they go explore bringing in a veteran, whoever's out there in free agent market. So they can go two ways. Jamal McCoy plays lights out football and he takes over that starting role, or are we looking at a situation where they say we got to go in the free agent market to bring some help there.
Yeah, and they could wait too, after preseason to see who gets cut too, to even add a veteran there, right?
Yeah,
again, a quarterback room.
There's going to be somebody out there that gets cut that deserves to be on a football team for sure.
Yeah, for me, I feel like the most exciting position battle outside quarterback, of course, that's going to be what everybody's looking at. But for me, the wide receiver position, because we stated earlier, there's not a true number one. There's a lot of of course, we got Trey Tucker coming back and had a pretty solid year, but we got Jack Besh, Dante Thornton. What do we have in those two guys, right? a lot of expectations last year to see what they had, and then you bring in somebody like Jalen Naylor from the Minnesota Vikings, who play with Justin Jefferson and could carve himself out to be a wide receiver one with the opportunities. But we got a lot of young guys here is that we could figure out what we have in them, and going into next season, at least we have answers for a lot of these young guys. Is Jack Besh still somebody we could kind of like rely on? Is Trey Tucker still somebody we want to keep on this roster? Heck, is Dante Thornton that speedster that we all expected him to be last year?
And he looked
so
good
watching
early
like
in camp last year too, like throughout camp. He was getting lots of opportunities. So like, what does that?
So
look
he
like?
looked good at camp because I've seen a lot of reports. Like there was always people hyping up Dante, like and camp, like that chemistry between him and Gino, but we didn't really see that when the season came around.
Yeah,
but
it kind of tailed off a little bit there for sure, and like I think the big thing with him was consistency, and we saw that as the year panned out. But again, like, can he do that now from like year 1 to year 2? Everyone talks about like receivers a tough position to learn just because like you're learning full concepts in the league, and the way defenses are rotating post snap now, like there's so much these guys got to figure out. Even especially a guy like Dante coming from an offense where one of the knocks on him is like the limited route tree and things like that. I mean, we saw him get some work with that, but needs to expand it a bit. And so I wonder what year 2 looks like for him. He looks like he could be a guy that could make that big jump. But I agree with you, man. Like, those two guys in particular, like you got to figure out what you have in them if they can be here long term. And I think that's just the receiving core as a whole, right?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. For me, what was that?
Oh yeah, I was saying most definitely you have to figure it out. You invested the draft on those two guys, and Dante Thornton, he jumped out early, getting first team reps during last year's training camp, and we really thought that, man, this guy has a chance because like when you look at the physical attributes, man, like he looks like an opposing threat down the field. But you saw as time, as to see when he start playing meaningful snaps, his limited route tree did play a factor, and but this is a crucial training camp for him and Jack Besh, because this is next year's draft class. The Raiders are in a position to draft pretty high again. Mm-hmm. There's a couple wide receivers in this coming draft class that they can bring in to kind of help solidify that depth chart. So I'm interested. That's outside cornerback. That's another position group that I think has a lot of eyes should be on.
Yeah. I think just back to the receiver things, it's so interesting to me to see like what's going to happen with Dante Thornton Jr. just because he is that guy that you typically would use to take the shot on the outside. And this offense will do some of that, but like where this offense is likely going to take their shots is going to be over the middle, off of those play action passes and stuff, not necessarily on the boundaries. And to me, he's more of that boundary type of guy. He's got all the speed in the world, but I think that's a guy you try and take those shots with outside the numbers, not necessarily over the middle or on like the deep skinny posts, things like that. Like he could thrive there. But I just wonder if like Jack Besh is a better fit for this offense. So I wonder almost if like Dante kind of finds himself on the outside looking in, especially with them even drafting a Malik Benson, who's a guy who I think can do some of that stuff over the middle a little bit more and brings the positional versatility because this is going to be a motion-based offense. I mean, what was it? I think it was like 63% that Clint used motion up in Seattle. So we're going to see a ton of that here with the Raiders. And Malik Benson, to me, is a guy that can play inside, outside. You're not worried about if you're putting him in the slot. I don't know that that's necessarily Dante's game. I would love for him to prove me wrong there. I just don't necessarily see it. But with Jack, too, you're also kind of limited because you don't want him on the outside because he lacks that speed. One of the other positions I'm watching, like you said, Ryan, the cornerback spot, if Jermod McCoy is that dude, that like top 10 talent, my God, that just changes this defense. Much like we talked about, adding like a Vita Vea into the mix, how much that would change this unit. If Jermod McCoy is that guy and he's healthy, like that's insane what this does for this group, given the investment that they've already put into their secondary. Yeah. But for me, I'm so fascinated to watch how things play out at guard, really at both guard spots. The guys that are going to be flanking Tyler Linderbaum. I mean, they bring in Burford, and I know it's the offseason, pads haven't been thrown on, none of that stuff, but it seems like they really trust Burford. He's got experience in this offensive system. He's got experience with his staff. What's that going to look like? And then at right guard, Jackson Powers-Johnson, a dude that just always finds a way to be talked about, whether it's his fault or us in the media just being talking heads talking about him. His name's been out there a ton. I wonder what happens with Caleb Rogers as well, another young dude that they invested capital in. Trey Zune, too, that's another dude. There's so many guys in the mix. And Jordan Meredith, like we can't forget about him. I know everybody hates last year what they saw as a center, but you can't forget 2 years ago as a guard, he put up some really good numbers in terms of Pro Football Focus, the way he was graded out. So, he's even in the mix, too. So, how does all that transpire? Who ends up where? And I think regardless, honestly, they're going to have good depth at the guard spot, which is something they've been lacking for a while too. So I just can't wait to see who actually ends up starting week 1. And honestly, like, I had this conversation on Raider Nation Radio today with Vinny. I think, like, they got to figure that out, and they got to stick with those guys. It can't be like a revolving door along the offensive line. You got to let them develop, you know, in this scheme and really get on the same page. So, like, I'm really curious to see who wins the job, and 2, if they, like, actually stick with them and give them the time to learn and develop and become a cohesive unit together.
Yeah. Yeah. And oh, go ahead.
Oh, my bad. Yeah. You look, you hit a good point there, because we don't know. Like, I think when we walked out of the offseason program, it seemed like the guards, your starting guards will be Spencer and JPJ. And, you know, when things get rolling tomorrow, you're probably going to see that same, you know, those same guys out there with the ones. But yeah, Caleb Rogers, the guy, he also got some first team reps during the offseason program, because I think there was a point where they gave JPJ some time off. And you know,
he jumped off sides, and they kind of like demoted him, which I hate saying demoted, because again, he says like quote unquote starters, quote unquote second and third team. Like, let's be honest about that. But it looked like to keep it real, it looked like, hey, he jumped off sides, and they're like, all right, get him out of there, throw Caleb out there. That's what it looked like.
Yeah. So so it looks, where does he fit? And then you look at Trey Zune. This is a guy they brought in. Was a day 2 pick, drafted in 3rd round, who can play anywhere on the offensive line as well.
This kid playing 5 positions. Right. Imagine when you let him play 1 and compete.
Yeah,
like, you know.
So the depth there is strong, but they need to figure that out soon. I think when you're talking about trying to figure out who plays where, who's with the first team, I think that's probably going to be the one position group they're going to figure out. After their first preseason game against Arizona, I think you're going to know who their starting offensive line, because it goes back to what you said, Jesse. You're going to need that continuity as well. And then there's another, when we're sticking to the offensive line, let's talk about right tackle.
Yeah, I'm glad you went there, because that's where I wanted to go next.
Because this is DJ Glaze. He's going into his 3rd year. His first year was.
Sorry to butt in again, but like he's entering his 3rd year. It's his 3rd year. Isn't that crazy?
I feel like he just got here
forever.
Oh, and he's been a starter for the last 2 seasons. His first season was pretty solid. Last year, he really took a ton of steps back. He really struggled. I believe it was like 16 sacks. Next gen stats, excuse me, recorded him as 16 sacks allowed. He really did not play well, and but at the same time, Clint Kubiak said early that he likes having continuity at both tackle spots, given that and they really trust offensive line coach Rick Dennison and getting the best out of DJ Glaze and the rest of those guys. So if we're seeing improvements from that offensive line, it's probably your unsung hero will probably end up being Rick Dennison, the offensive line coach, because they're putting a lot of pressure on Rick Dennison, who's worked with Clint Kubiak. He's worked with Clint Kubiak in the past. He's worked with his father. Gary has won 4 Super Bowls. They were putting a lot of pressure on him to coach this offensive line to the standard they want. But going back to Glaze, he has competition there at right tackle with Charles Grant. And you can't forget Trey Zune as well. Trey Zune, like they think he can play offensive tackle if needed. But I think Charles Grant, this is someone they also drafted last year going to year 2. There's a lot of They like the potential he has there. We saw him get a few reps at right tackle during the offseason program. So I'm interested to see how that competition plays out. And can DJ Glaze, maintain his spot as a starter? At the moment, he is. He's going into camp as the front runner to be that starting right tackle. But does that change with, if Charles Grant starts getting some more reps at right tackle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, TJ, how do you wrap your head around the right tackle spot with DJ and even Charles Grant too? Because I know, at least like on my shows and stuff, it seems like a lot of folks do not like DJ Glaze as a starter at right tackle. Where do you stand on that in your conversations with a lot of the fans, and when with your content? Like, where are people at with him?
Well, I think they're all on the same page as that. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I don't really pay too much attention to the offensive line. I just know that somebody gave up the sack, and we're all being frustrated. But I know that that's a position that has definitely got to get figured out. I mean, for the past couple of years, we've always had to wonder who that right tackle is going to be. I know the guard position, we could kind of figure, we kind of got some solid guys there, and then of course the left tackle position with Colton Miller is always going to be pretty solid as long as he's healthy. But I I don't know, because I know you guys see him more at camp. I think until we see them in game time, like that's where I can kind of see who's the right guy. But like I said, like last year, it's kind of hard because a lot of these guys, a lot of them struggle. But I don't know if you blame the player or blame coaching staff as well. But I think just
it's a little bit both. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think to your guys' point, I think just keeping people in there with continuity is going to be a key factor. It's good to have depth, but not trying to overutilize that depth when like somebody's not doing right. It's like, okay, let's just switch it out this week, or who's going to start this week. So if they could find out who that guy is, like once preseason is over and they have that starting lineup, then I think we'd be okay.
Yeah, my whole thing with like the way I go about with DJ Glaze and the right tackle situation, like Ryan, to your point, like it was bad. You said 16 sacks is what Next Gen Stats credited him with.
Yeah,
like I think
70 pressures.
Yeah, I think Stone Forsythe was the only other tackle in the league that gave up more sacks, and that was when he filled in for Colton Miller at left tackle. So like obviously it was horrible on both ends there. And so, like, that's inexcusable. Like, yes, the coaching needs to be factored in, like, 100%. But at a certain point, too, the player needs to take some, responsibility for it. And I'm not saying that he's not taking responsibility for that. We haven't had a chance to hear that from him. But that's something where it's like you got to answer to that because, like, that's a big-ass number, especially on the outside, too. But I think one thing that's really beneficial for Raiders fans and just for us even out there watching at camp, too, is, like, they've got Max Crosby, and he can test your tackle and expose some things. And I give this staff a good read on how DJ is. Like, because I think he was a guy, honestly, that was trending in the right direction before last season. Not saying that he was going to be some, like, Pro Bowl starter, all these things. But, like, I thought he was trending in the right direction to be a serviceable right tackle for the Raiders, So, like, I'm interested to see what that development looks like. And I know so many people love Charles Grant. And, like, it's easy to love him because he hasn't played a ton, because he hasn't had a chance to let you down, But, like, at the end of the day, too, this kid, from William and Mary, right, Ryan? Like, he's trying to figure out how to play, even at, like, the upper echelon level of college football, let alone in the NFL. Like, he's adjusting to that side of it. Now, he did show really good power and footwork and things like that, and he shows that he's got the mind for it because I think he's going to work as a bit of a swing tackle, too, for him. But I'm really, really curious to see what he looks like, too, going into year two and just how that battle transpires between the two of them. But I agree with you. I think DJ Glaze is going to be the guy, until he proves otherwise. And when that'll be, I have no idea. But it's going to be really interesting to watch. And you hope that they figure it out soon for the sake of the quarterback.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, most definitely. Yeah, you have to. Like, you have to figure that out. That's probably one position group you're going to have, like I said before, that's the one position group you're going to need to know at least after that first preseason game. And I think when you go back to last year with Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, they figured that out pretty early on too. Like after the preseason game in Seattle, Pete Carroll announced like, hey, Jordan Meredith is our starting center for moving forward. Like, so they didn't waste after that first game, you knew. And I think that's going to be the same, even as a different staff. I think that should be the same approach. Like you need to know who that group is. So at least whoever's under center, Mendoza, Cousins, they can still develop that trust and continuity. And even the guys up front, they can, develop that chemistry with one another.
And I think that's important for any offensive line, but I think it's even more important in this scheme too. Like I had Marshall Newhouse on my podcast a while ago when we talked about the offensive line, and he just talked about this scheme, this Kubiak/Shanahan scheme, and how much more important the communication factor is with these guys, like especially when you're learning it right away and how fast that can accelerate things in terms of learning this. So I think it's even more important for that factor that like this is year one for them in this system, and like to be able to accelerate that, you need to have the continuity along there. With those guys. So I'm so curious to see if the staff actually approaches it that way. And we got a lot to watch, man. Like we said, training camp kicking off tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. 7:30 a.m., Ryan. What time are you getting up tomorrow, man? I'm going to be up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, I get up at 5, but like I'm an early riser anyway, so I normally get out of bed early. So I'm going to be up bright and early, 5 a.m., and probably headed to the facility like probably an hour after I wake up. So I got to get to bed early tonight.
I'm usually a 6:30 a.m. guy, so that 5 a.m. wake-up call for me ends up feeling a little more rough. TJ, I know you love your sleep, man. Are you going to wake up at 7:30? Are you going to be up in time for practice?
I usually try to wake up early anyways because I got to get stuff done before the day. But, like, especially tomorrow, it's kind of like first day of school, right? Like, especially, like, seeing what's going on, watching your guys' tweets as the day goes on. And then, of course, the the press conferences after. I was just talking about it on my video today. I was like, dang, we're back. Like we're right back to regular program. Like we had the whole offseason. It was nice to have that downtime for the past month or two. But it's gonna start ramping up. I know you guys are gonna be doing your thing. I might catch you guys over there anyways at training camp. I know it opens up to fans next week. Yeah, next week. So it's gonna be fun, and I hope this is pretty dope. I think for our first episode, especially knowing that you guys are there, you guys are boots on the ground, getting to see everything inside, and as we prepare for the season. But yeah, like I said, I'll probably catch you guys there next week. But you know what? Good luck tomorrow, waking up early. I'll definitely be looking out for you guys' updates and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure every Raider fan is going to be up wondering what's going on, man. But yeah, credit to Ryan too. Well, both of you guys, I don't know how y'all be doing it though. You guys be over there and like tweet every minute, bro. Like, damn,
man, we're out here. The Twitter fingers
like,
fast,
like they're talking in the interview, and you're like, the tweets are all. I said, I can't do that, man. I'll be talking to some other people, and I was like,
next level in media, man.
It's easy from where I'm at. Like, these content creators, we just sit back and just wait for you guys to say something.
I will say, I do laugh every now and then. I love the fans, so I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody, but sometimes if there's a typo or whatever, it's like, damn, we're trying to listen and tweet at the same time.
Bro, I don't
Excuse me
know
if I
how.
don't put a comma in the right spot. Like, that stuff gets me. But again, I'm so excited, man. I can't wait. Like, TJ, you and I were talking before we got the show rolling. Like, we actually will have real football to talk about. Ryan, I know you're fired up for it. Like, a lot of the what ifs are kind of going away, and now we can talk about what we're actually seeing. And we're going to be doing a lot of that here on the show on the Raiders Collective as the week goes on. Again, guys, every Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. TJ, we got anybody in the chat before we close this thing out? We got to give
man. Shout out to the chat. I know the chat's been going on and off, but shout out to Alik up in here, Kenny Clark. They've been just going back and forth. Alik says Kubiak says everyone is healthy. Oh yeah, he did say that. Yeah. Everybody was healthy today. I think
we're gonna be watching to see if he's out there. He said they're all healthy. So
we'll see Max out there. We'll see Jamad out there. So that's good to see. And then he says, "Have a good evening, everyone." And don't forget, guys, if you guys are watching, man, I think we held it pretty well, like 140, 150 up in the chat. Like, so I was like, hey, that's good for the first show. If you guys do love content like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, notification icon button as well. But I think it's gonna be a fun season because now we have an avenue to kind of talk every single week, whether good or bad about this team. So yeah.
And Tuesdays are perfect too, because like after the game, it's like, okay, you got a day to digest it, and then Tuesday evening we can talk about like what happened and then what's next for the team. So I like the structure and the time of the show too. I think that'll be good.
Yeah, I think it's perfect.
Yeah. So I can't wait, man. With that, I mean, shoot, we're coming up almost on a little over an hour and a half. So let's cut this one off, guys. Like we said, Ryan's got to get to bed. We got to get some sleep.
Yeah, I got to be bright and early tomorrow.
I can't wait, man. But can't wait for the next episode with you guys. This was a lot of fun.
All right, guys.
Look forward to it, guys.
Yes, sir. Take it easy, guys.